going on? Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Dame Dash News, presented by Dame Dash Studios and OSG. I am one of your hosts for tonight, Dennis McKeezy, founder of Off School Grounds. We better known it as we know it better as OSG, the coalition, an organization of amazing school leaders that are looking to change the dynamic of education, while at the same time leveling the playing field for our young people of color to make sure that they do have those opportunities to succeed. I want to bring in another one of my guests and close friend. I want to bring in my brother Lays Elliott from the world famous Most Dangerous MOP, and again co-founder with me. What's going on, Big Lays? How you?
Easy breezy. Good to see you, brother. I like you in that chair. You're looking real good, looking real smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I see you when it got that cut, man. You know, I got that cut too, but I like rocking my OSG hat if you don't mind, man. So
yeah, I got you. You gotta represent. You gotta represent OSG. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. So I hear you got something big going on tonight at the Raw Perspective over there on Facebook later on, huh?
Oh, it's gonna be amazing tonight. We got our good friend Lakeisha Williams. She's gonna come on tonight. If you don't remember, it went viral. We were talking about. She was talking with a class about Kamala Harris, and they made a big play, a brown girl, and we're gonna talk to her about it. Not just so much about to Kamala Harris, but how it's impacting, how social media is impacting the schools, and how she's been impacted by how this whole thing went viral. So definitely tune in at 7 o'clock. We're gonna have a good time.
Perfect. What's going on? I want to bring in another one of our hosts. We're gonna call her hostess for the night. She's the brains behind all of this. We want to bring in the principal of PS 118 in Queens, St. Albans. I want to bring in my sister, Michelle Sasudas. Michelle, you in the building? Where's Michelle? Come on in here, Michelle. Oh, you know what? She said she's logging in. So you know what we do? We'll save the best for last. Where's right now? You know what I'm gonna do? How about this? Why don't we bring in Dame Dash? Why don't we bring in our brother Dame Dash? Dame, what up, man?
Bring in the Dash man himself.
Hey, Dame,
brother Dame.
What an amazing day for you, huh? I mean, you look tired. Listen, I text you. It must have been about 7 o'clock, which is about 4 o'clock your time. And man, I know you've been up all day, man. So tell the people what's going on, Big Dame.
Well, we get ready to have the baby, so we're going through it right now. And I've been here before. This is the Super Bowl. It's that day, so I know what I'm prepared for. It's Rocky's first time, but while I was sitting there, I was like, I could not do this news show. So let's get it. I wanted to get it popping because definitely been a lot of things going on in the news that we should definitely get at, and there's things that I think the world needs to know from our perspective, from the people that we consider heroes, which is the purpose for the this Dash News segment. The OSG are definitely playing their part as it relates to fighting for others, especially for our kids, and being disruptive. One note is I feel like we should make those.
There you go, Dane. There you go. You don't even need to say it. You don't even need to say it, Dane.
We don't want it to look like the same show. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We don't want it to look like the meetup. This is the news show. So we want to.
There you go.
So again, I'm here no matter what. Everything is cool and suave, but I know the landscape, the narrative, and the things that are going on. I just feel like we need to talk about it. What it looks like when the president won't step down when he loses, what that means, the temperature of how we're going to react, us almost getting the Senate, how important this runoff is going to be. And also the congressman has some things on his mind and some really relevant, strong issues. So this is the platform for that, and I'm down. So I'm looking forward, definitely talking to the mayor. She always has some substantially aspirational fight that no one else could do and does it eloquently. And, so again, this is us controlling our narrative.
Absolutely. So, Dame, how's Rocky doing, man? Before we get on to Michelle, how's Rocky doing?
She cursed me out a little bit, but not too much. I almost knocked out Ivy. And she's been super strong so far. She's epiduraled up, and you know. No, she's not epiduraled up yet. Not epiduraled up yet. She's not done that yet. She got the other one that got her cool.
You back there fussing. I hear right now. Go ahead, Rocky. Come on, baby. Let's go.
Yo, that's some more. Probably for even being in here doing this, but it's all good. So I'm in the delivery room. I'm in the delivery room right now.
That's great.
Yeah, Dame, that's dope, man. That's dope, man. Hey,
stay tuned. The new Dash might come into the world while the show is going. That would be kind of crazy.
Well, we hoping.
You know what's going down.
Good, man. Congratulations in advance, Dan. Dame, we can't wait to see it, bro.
All right, I got you. I'm gonna get you later, ladies. I'm gonna get you later. I'm wondering how you ended up on the show. Like how you ended up hosting our show too. Go off the stage, man.
Hey, Dave, remember, man, you know he used to be on them stages with you, man. He used to be on those stages with you.
I ain't jumping on my stage. I'll let him get on the stage. All right. Well, who's our first guest? What we get? How we popping?
You know what we gonna do? You know what? Listen,
I'm not hosting with Lays. He's not hosting today. He's not.
You see, I'm chilling. I'm sitting back. I'm laying back.
Yeah, lay back, bro.
I'm laying back.
Knock it off.
Hey, Dave, since you brought it up, man.
Why am I at the bottom? I don't understand what's going on right now. Best friends pyramid. Nah.
Could somebody put Dame at the top of the pyramid, please?
Yeah, please. Dave, top of the pyramid.
Yes, more boxing.
Let's get a congressman or a mayor in there. You know what I mean? Let's go.
No doubt. Hey, yo, Dave. So here's what we got. Hey, Dave. Since you just talked her up, you know what? While we wait for Michelle to come on, guess what? We're just gonna bring in Mayor Patterson for Money on Mount Vernon. Come on in, Mayor Patterson.
Hi. How are you guys doing? How's everyone?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Definitely praying for you and Rocky and baby Dusko on the way. So we're excited.
We're all excited. Trust me. It's been a long journey, but we're here now. I appreciate the support and the family love.
Absolutely. We just got a little good news in the last hour that they finally turned Georgia and Arizona blue on the electoral map. Mm-hmm. They gave North Carolina to Trump, but they still have probably a few 100,000 mail-in votes they have to count. We know what happens when mail-in votes get counted.
Hey, Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Like being that Trump, lost Philly and Pennsylvania, is the reason they're so heavy on the rest of the election because he won't be embarrassed? It's done. I don't understand what the problem is.
It's done, but he hasn't accepted it yet. So, look, he's accepted it in private, but in public, he has to put up a fight. And so that's what he's doing right now. He's trying to come up with his plan. Probably so much of what he hears is that he might bring Pence. He might resign and let Pence become president so that Pence could, forgive him and give him clemency and wipe away whatever crimes he's done. But that only matters for criminal charges that's already been brought against him. Most people who are going to bring criminal charges against Trump are going to wait until after January 20th. And there'll be no one in the White House at that time to give him a pardon. So
he's like, why don't you charge me now so I can pardon myself? But
absolutely.
The thing I'm having a problem with Trump right now is you hear a lot about what he's thinking, but he himself has not come out and said anything. No one's seen him since November 5th. So how can somebody lead by? I don't understand what kind of leader goes from Twitter. If he really feels he won, he should stand up and say he won and be able to have a direct conversation. But when I look at what the president-elect is doing, he seems to be actually being a president. He's being presidential. He's setting up plans. He's dealing with COVID. The president doesn't, Trump doesn't seem like he's doing anything for the country, but just trying to stay out of jail right now. And that seems
he did go golfing for 2 days. That was very important to him. He went golfing.
Right.
And he's been staying in the White House. He started tweeting a little bit more. And I do believe he had a press conference about an hour ago.
He did?
But not to concede.
I just want to hear what he got to say. I like looking at him because it's so demeaning And I think it's like the most humbling thing to see him now have to listen, read, as opposed to freestyle and sit there and say he didn't lose when he did. Nothing's worse than a sore loser. That's someone that's not a leader. You know what I mean? When you can't admit that you didn't, you weren't the better person in that moment. I can't check for that. And well, I think he's making everybody else look stupid.
He's suffering from cognitive dissonance right now. What he knows is disconnected to reality. And so, that's a challenge. That's his new struggle this week.
Well, that's what I always look at as super racist, white supremacists. They always, no matter how much money they got, they'll be like, yo, I'm better than you because I'm white and you're black. No matter what, they cannot admit that they're losing when they are. It's hilarious. That's what white supremacy is, not admitting you're losing when you are.
As long as that U-Haul pulls up before January 20th and packs his stuff, I'm okay with it.
Wow.
He can talk all the trash. He needs to really start the process of transition. Look, I became mayor and I used every single day I had up until January 1st to prepare my transition, to go in and sit with those who are in City Hall and our county and our state and our federal government to start those conversations. And that's just for a city. So the time that, Biden definitely needs, along with Vice President-elect Harris, to ramp up, every day is critical. And so every day that we lose talking about why Trump won't concede and why he's not addressing COVID, that's a day lost. So I definitely want to applaud President-elect Biden and Harris for moving forward with their plan. They're not focusing on his narrative and all of his frivolity. They're getting their transition team together. They're working on their transition plans, and the different federal agencies are starting to have some level of response to them. Even your military and different government officials are coming out and saying, look, even if we're not recognizing and acknowledging what the results of this election are right now, we must start this transition. And so I don't think it'll be much, much longer before he has to really concede. Even if he never says it out his mouth, the other federal agencies are going to have to acknowledge it and start this transition. We've never in the history of America seen anything like this, and we don't want to see it anymore.
What do you think it means that China and Russia won't make that call?
Make that call? Well, look, they'll make that call when it's ready. Russia knows the gig is up. They have lots of investments in Trump. His wife is Russian, so they might as well just build his house and he can, become an oligarch over in Russia, and she can go back home to her family, and he can be an immigrant in Russia. How about that? That's where his home is. And they may not want him there because he owes too much right now. He hasn't been in office long enough to fulfill his plans and his obligations to them. So he may not be really welcome in Russia either.
Well, I feel like, based on what he did to Ice Cube and made a bunch of promises he can't keep, I can only imagine the promises he's made to other people that he has no intention of keeping and can't now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well,
it's going to be interesting.
Damon Mayor Patterson, we got Michelle, principal extraordinaire from PS 118 in Queens. Come on in, Michelle.
Am I in? Hey, family.
We can't start without you, Shelly.
I had to make sure I was officially OSG today.
There you go, Shelly. And Shelly, before we even get into you a little bit, I want to bring in our other guest, Congressman Andre Carson. Come on in.
Okay.
There he is. What's going on?
Congratulations. Salute. Good to see everybody. Absolutely. Good to see the mayor, Michelle, the chairman, Baz, Brother Dennis, Brother Elliott. It's all good. Good company.
Well, congratulations,
Congressman.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We never want to take anything for granted, so I always run, and the mayor understands this, I always run like I'm 20 points behind.
Hey, anybody else hear the echo?
Yeah.
Is there any way we can get rid of it?
Go ahead, Dame. I think we did it. I think you did it. It might have been Michelle's mic. Hey, before we get into to talking a little bit to Andre Carson and Mayor Patterson, I wanted to, once and for all, I think earlier today, last night, I sent a text to Michelle, and want to give my condolences to her and her family for the loss of her family member, who was actually, if I'm not mistaken, Michelle, former president of Ghana, correct? Is former president of Ghana, Jerry Rawlings. And I just want you to take a few minutes and let everybody know about how awesome your uncle was, and the stuff that he was doing in Ghana. And again, our condolences to you and your family.
Thank you much. That's actually a little bit while I was late. I was just on the phone with my father. Ghana right now as a nation is in deep mourning. Besides Nkrumah, my uncle had a very long-standing presidency, um, and everyone is just so saddened. It was so unexpected, and I thank everyone for the condolences. And it's I'm just praying for my cousins and my aunt, and just that as a nation they're able to heal and maintain and move forward. And they've been talking about putting together a state funeral and everything else. So it's difficult, but he was a great man. He had a lot of vision. He was an ambassador to Somalia. He constantly was touring and sharing his vision for the African nations as a whole. He was thinking beyond Ghana and just building the wealth of the entire continent. And everyone is at such a loss. But everyone knew him as, President Jerry John Rollins. I knew him as Uncle JJ, and he will definitely be missed.
So, Michelle, I was reading an article earlier, and they were paying tribute to your uncle, and the president, President Otto, said something that I think was pretty profound, and he says, a great tree has fallen, and Ghana is poorer for this loss. And I feel like, to know that your uncle made such an impact in Ghana. But I think when you talk about that, it's hard to eliminate the impact he's made on you and those of us here in America. So, I think on behalf of, myself and OSG, mayor, congressmen, other people, we want to, extend a thank you to you and your family for, sharing him with us over this period of time that he was doing big things over there in Ghana. So again, we, nothing but respect to you, Michelle, and your family. We're praying for all of you. Continue to do the work, continue to live out the legacy, because we know the work that you're doing over there in Queens is very, very real, and it's symbolic of what your uncle was doing. You're muted, Michelle.
Oh. He held the bar really, really high. And it's funny how 6 degrees of separation is even smaller than that, because that's actually how I got my first job in the district that I work in now. I go for the interview and I'm talking to the principal, and he's like, I just flew back from Chicago. There was this dynamic speaker, and his name was Jerry Rollins. And I looked and I said, my uncle was in the United States and didn't tell me? And he goes, what? He said, that's your uncle? I said, yes. He said, you're hired on the spot. And the first person who hired me in this district was Shango Blake, who is a friend to OSG. So it's a small world.
Absolutely, Michelle. And I want to, give Congressman Andre Carson an opportunity to speak, because I know he's been doing some amazing things himself, and I know there's quite a bit going on with him. And so, Andre Carson, the congressman, we want to ask a question of you. Again, is now that the election is over, now what? What should we be doing now? Who should we be talking to? What laws should we be trying to enact? What should we be doing now that the election is over?
Well, kudos to, that's a great question, Brother Dennis. Kudos to Chairman Dash for assembling all of us from across the country. You know, Americans, all of us, black, white, rich, poor, I think we're still paying an extremely heavy price for Donald Trump's administration, his lack of leadership, his repeated temper tantrums, even his attempts to block President-elect Biden from receiving intelligence briefings. That's a major threat to our national security. And I think it's important for, Biden, as the former chair of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, he's acquainted with these kinds of briefings. So we don't have the same kind of learning curve. But I think it's important that he's made fully aware of any threats to our nation starting from day one. The mayor talked about what she did as she transitioned. And I think each day that he's denied that kind of information, it gives our enemies an opportunity to exploit weaknesses. The 9/11 Commission, they determined that the delayed transition after the very contested 2000 election, we all remember that, it was a factor in laying the groundwork for the September 11th attacks. And President Bush, regardless of what one may think about him, he as president, he wasn't able to fill important cabinet positions well into 2001. And I think if Donald Trump really cares about the country more than his ego, he needs to cooperate. Here's a president, Brother Dennis, who has a background in development. He missed a very important opportunity to not work with the Democrats in getting a transportation bill passed, whether you're from Indiana, New York, California, Pennsylvania, Jersey, down south. There are over 15,000 roads and bridges in this country that need to be rebuilt, repaved, resurfaced. And these are job creators for the next 15 to 20 years. And so for someone who has a background in development to miss an opportunity to work with the Democrats, we gave him a proposal of $1.5 trillion initially. He agreed. The Republicans came back, Republican Senate leadership came back with a $700 billion proposal. We came back with a $2 trillion proposal, and he agreed to work with us because of the optics. That's poor leadership. He'd rather tweet out against celebrities than work to do what's best for our country. I think, secondly, we have to get very serious about leveraging, as a Black community, our voting block. I know there's been a lot of talk about that in a very meaningful way, what that may look like. It looks like having our votes and having our population reflected in the administration. Kamala Harris just announced her chief of staff, sister. We want to see us represented even as it relates to secretary positions, cabinet positions. And I think also we have to really talk about, I know the OSG network talks about this regularly, we have to talk about the future of education and what education looks like in the midst of COVID. Marion County, in which Indianapolis is housed, just announced schools will be virtual, completely virtual, at least up until January 1st. And so what does that virtual reality look like? What does it look like in terms of funding NGOs who do important work to meet the needs of those kids who rely on going to school to get fed? You all know better than I do. And I also think as it relates to women and minority-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, having access to federal contracting, not just as subs, but as primes. We know with other communities, a lot of generational wealth is built. Black-owned firms, when they have access to city contracts, state contracts, and federal contract work.
Doing 2024, the effect he's going to have on the Republican Party, the fact that you have people that are supposed to be looked at as credible with a straight face, questioning our democracy, all of a sudden because they're told to. What happens in 68 days? All these people that are running around questioning our democracy, questioning the way we govern, just over this election. How does anybody take these people serious moving forward? And I don't understand.
That's a good question. What we saw was so-called intelligent people, educated people, people who are leaders in their community buckle under a would-be autocrat, a would-be tyrant. And they were so afraid of Donald Trump, they didn't want to critique him in a healthy way, the way they did George Bush and presidents before, because they feared that he would come into their states, come into their districts and say, you know what, I love your city, I love your state, but your congressman or congresswoman sucks. And that was just enough for them to feel as if their reelection opportunities would be jeopardized if he were to be critical of them or send a tweet against them, thus making the way for an opponent to unseat them. And that's a very tough time, because we know that the framers of the Constitution and the founders of this country, the so-called founding fathers, were racist, they were sexist, to say the least. But they were genius in that they set up 3 separate but equal branches of government to act as a check and balance on the other, because they had a reference point from Europe. And so this notion of a president who is constantly engaging with not only our open enemies, but other dictators, because he sees himself in the same light, to be able to put fear in the hearts and minds of most, not all, legislators, I think it's a sad moment. So the Republican Party is going to have to rebrand itself, and they're going to have to do some soul searching in terms of what true leadership means and what true boldness means.
What was the move with the Pentagon? He starts firing everybody. How is that going to impact us? Because that's what I'm worried about. He's starting to fire people, and I just feel like he's trying to mess stuff up. If it's not going to be his country, no one can. It's nobody's country. I don't get these moves. He's just firing people.
Well, Trump is a master marketer. I mean, he understands symbols. That's why he was so effective in talking about making America great again, because he wanted to take our country back to some mythical America that never really existed. So he understands by firing someone without talking to them, doing it nationally, internationally, he knows not only will it erode the morale of that individual he's targeting, who was known to speak out against him publicly in meetings, but he knows it puts fear in the hearts and minds of other subordinates in our Pentagon and our military and other parts of our cabinet. The beauty of it is that while these people are brilliant and they're great leaders, oftentimes it is the undersecretaries who are involved with the day-to-day administration and operation of many of these agencies. Now, you and I were talking a couple of days ago, right? And
there were some things going on that didn't sound right to me. Can we talk about that?
Let's roll.
Let's get it. So, I think your police chief was coming at your head, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the police chief. It was the superintendent of state police. There's a right-wing radio host who hates me. He works for MS Communication. Every day he's saying something, about me, and it stirs up people who call the office, and they issue death threats against me constantly. And so he put a battery in the back of a lot of people in law enforcement, of which I was in law enforcement. And the superintendent, he sent me a text, and the text that he sent me, I let him know. He sent it on a work email. I let him know that it's a document that could be made public. And I let him know that he's misreading me. So I thought that he was getting too cute in the text. And to his credit, we met face to face. And, I told him, I said, in any other context, I don't think that you would have felt like you could have spoken to me that way. I mean, any other member of Congress would have called the governor immediately and been in his head. But I sat down with him, and honestly, I had to put my own ego aside, and the fact that I grew up on 25th Street, and the fact that I was arrested at 17 and being charged with battery on a police officer, resisting arrest and fleeing, and I had to put my machismo down, and the fact that I grew up in a crack-infested neighborhood, and I know if I didn't have sociopaths and drug dealers and gangsters talking to me that way, I definitely wouldn't take it from him. And after we hashed it out and talked it out, and he stated his opinion, and I stated my opinion, and I gave him insights. I said, you can't dictate to me how I should feel about a tweet regarding a police action shooting when you haven't had my experiences, and those experiences have shaped my viewpoint. And, he said he'd be willing to come on a program like this, come on our town halls. He'd be willing to come to Congress. He'd be willing to come to the hood and go anywhere, because he, as a white superintendent, was heartbroken when he learned that many of the state troopers who have been a part of the Indiana State Police for decades feel constantly discriminated against, denied promotional opportunities. And he said he was shocked. And I said, the fact that you're shocked is a part of the problem. But to his credit, he sent out an olive branch, and he said he's willing to learn. So I have to salute him for his honesty, his candor, even the fact that he was willing to critique me. And he even apologized in the way he approached it, which, I got to respect that. So maybe we'll see him in the future on this program and we can get his viewpoint. But he mentioned that officers around the country and troopers and sheriff's deputies, they're afraid. And they don't know where they can start, even if it relates to somebody. He said that there was a meeting the other day. I don't want to divulge much of the meeting, where officers have said that they've seen clear violations of the law, but they're afraid to act on it because they don't want the pushback or being accused of being racist. And I said, it's important because I'm with the activist community almost every day, or at least weekly, that you have folks from the activist community show up to these police academies and meet with these young recruits, many of whom are 22, 23, 24, same age as many of the activists, or even younger. And before they go out into the streets, because some of these folks come from rural parts of the state or the country, and they're going into these urban centers, and their only reference point regarding the Black people has been from a video, or they've seen a movie. And oftentimes those movies probably aren't a full representation of all of our beauty and majesty. And he was really open to receiving it. So, we sat down, we chopped it up like men, and I'll leave it there. But I think going forward, it's important, as I said earlier on Fox Network, that media outlets have to be responsible about what they allow some of their hosts to say online, because there are too many people who, my daughter, my relatives, Dame, you've experienced this with folks coming at you and your family. They're often collateral damage, and that's unfair. And so I think that people have to be more responsible, but if we don't put repercussions in place, people are going to continue with business as usual.
I'd like to open the questions.
I have a few questions I want to ask.
Condolences, Michelle. Condolences.
Thank you. So here we are on the brink of a new, hopefully dynamic, new presidency. Are there any initiatives that you look forward to moving forward once January hits?
Well, we passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which sets a national standard for body cams and dash cams in police cruisers. We also, in this legislation, it eliminates very deadly chokeholds. And I think there has to be some kind of national standard. And in the event that local prosecutors are unable to, because of political motivations or fear of them not getting reelected or reappointed, are unable to get closure to some of these families as it relates to unjust shootings and killings, then there has to be a national panel in which these officers and these agencies have to be held accountable to, whether it's Congress or some objective outside body, but it has to be federalized in a way where we have some kind of accountability. I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about prison reform. I'm excited about even my own bill, which is the Recidivism Reduction Act. And it effectively allows people who, if they were receiving some kind of benefit before they were incarcerated because of pre-existing conditions or health conditions, once they're released, those benefits kick back in immediately, because we don't want to have folks out 3 months and 6 months and they recidivate back into a life of crime. And lastly is my financial services bill. I just met with Andrew Yang, and I introduced a financial, and I'll reintroduce it in a few weeks, a financial literacy bill. I've met with superintendents, I've met with principals and educators who are doing a phenomenal job, but they're stretched so thinly, you all know better than I do, because of testing requirements. And so we would like for school districts to partner up with the banking community, credit unions, even accountants, as you know, and Andrew Yang recommended we talk to accountants to teach financial literacy, so children can leave our schools with an understanding of basic financial principles, and have, you know, a guy like Dame Dash come in, and for these young entrepreneurial minds, and allow them, because, you know, I grew up with a lot of entrepreneurs. You know, I made name belts, sold candy, a lot of stuff, but we see a lot of young entrepreneurial minds, and some of these young men and women eventually become pharmaceutical sales reps, or they get into the music industry. I sold CDs too, but we don't want them, we're not trying to make folks become hedge fund managers, but we want them to have a working knowledge of basic financial concepts that will help them have a more secure and stable future. But OSG Network, maybe that's something that we can work with you all on in terms of our language, so we can introduce something that's even more sound and solid than we did in previous Congresses.
I'm excited about
That
everything
sounds like a plan.
that's to come.
Sure.
Right? So it wouldn't be right if I didn't speak as an educator. So I'm going to pull that hat on. So I've been looking at Biden's plan for educators, students, and the future is what he's calling it, right? And he's talking about tripling Title I funding for schools in that are economically disadvantaged. Do you know where he has an idea of pulling this money from?
You know, we're not sure yet. So a part of that funding pot, once we have the congressional, budget office score it, we have to see where that money is going to go. A lot of people, when we talk about education, one of the things that came up in a recent caucus was ways in which we can generate more money for education. Some states have looked at, you know, legalization of marijuana as a vehicle to fund education. Folks in Congress are looking at different ways. We know we can't do a gas tax, but a lot of us have talked about adopting a European style value added tax on the sale of goods to go specifically toward education. I think the challenge is that with Congress, because we're tasked with funding, once money gets to the states, is really kind of out of our hands. Even with the COVID relief money, there are still governors who are sitting on billions of dollars in their coffers, and they've yet to release it to cities and towns and counties. And so I think as we talk about educational funding, and if the OSG network can kind of help us, and I can present it to the Black Caucus and the Hispanic Caucus with the kind of specificity we need, and that will address some of the challenges that educators face. Because once it goes to the states, you know, the governors kind of can dangle that over school districts, which becomes even more problematic because we know more resources go to suburbia than urban centers.
Okay, so I have one more question. So it's in relation to something you said about like building financial literacy, and I think that schools have been missing that for a very long time. And you know, a lot of our children are extremely savvy in thinking about the jobs that are waiting for them that aren't necessarily focused on in traditional school settings. So it leaves a lot of our children disadvantaged because they're not engaged and interested in some of the curriculum that's now being presented. So I see that there, especially in New York, there's a push again to re-energize the idea around vocational schools.
Yes.
And teaching to college and career readiness. But how do we avoid falling into the trap of the 70s where many minorities were immediately put on that path to say you go to a vocational school and learn a skill so that you can work for someone else, as opposed to being college bound where maybe they were learning to start their own business. How do we prevent that from happening again?
I love that's so brilliant. You know, we've been talking to organized labor about that, because a lot of times when many of us come out of these vocational schools, they still have barriers to entry into some of these fields due to, unfortunately, some elements in organized labor, and I've been very, very vocal and very critical of it. I think it's important that, which is financial literacy is so important, because oftentimes we don't have access to capital, and we're unable to get the same kinds of loans that other folks get. And ways in which we can talk about having a banking system that, and I'd love for Dame to chime in terms of getting loans. That doesn't mean we have to rely on our celebrities, but ways in which we can pool our resources and help young entrepreneurs develop a business plan and a pitch, and find out what it will really take to go to a bank to get them to underwrite or fund your idea. We have a lot of angel investors, but not everyone may be willing to take a chance on a young entrepreneur. And so ways in which we can build stronger relationships. I know Chase Bank just launched an initiative for young entrepreneurs, but that's a long line because Chase is so massive and Chase is so big. I think the question has to become, what can we do to build greater relationships with community banking institutions, smaller banks that would be willing to make these kinds of loans to young entrepreneurs, not in a way that will enslave them to decades of debt, but in a way that can empower them. And maybe that comes with greater mentoring programs. Maybe these community banks can create systems, and this could be a part of the financial literacy bill, create systems in which mentoring can take place, and they can pair these younger entrepreneurs up with probably more seasoned entrepreneurs to help walk them through the process without exploiting them.
Wow, thank you for that, Congressman. I mean, I know that your time is valuable, and I know you had to get in and get out. We want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate you. And Dame had to jump off, as you and I both know. They're expecting a baby any second now. So he texted me and said that he had to jump off. So let's just keep him and Rocky and baby Dusko in our prayers. And you and I will definitely be in touch. And again, I'm glad to call you a friend, man. And I'm really, really happy that every time OSG needs you, man, you step to the forefront, and we greatly appreciate you for that, brother.
Appreciate you, Brother Dennis. All the best to you, Mayor. Prayers for your mom. I know what it's like. I lost my mom, nothing like a mother. And all the best to you, Michelle. You'll be seeing me soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hey, and Mayor, we're family, and it's completely up to you. I want to applaud you. Yesterday we were talking about adaptive leadership, and we gave so many examples of it yesterday. And just to see what you just text me and to see your response is truly an example of adaptive leadership. And so I appreciate you for pushing through. It's completely up to you what you want to share at this point, but I think it's important for us to have that discussion about, now that the election is over, now what? Like, we got to talk about some real actionable steps that we can do, that we can put in place, so that we leave this place in better condition than how our young people found it. So I'm going to bring Lays Elliott back in, and Mayor Patterson. So please talk to us a little bit about what's, again, I'll let you decide how you want to usher in this conversation, but I definitely want to know what's next.
Absolutely. I mean, so what's next? You have already the congressman started talking about some of the very important things. First, the opportunity for economic mobility is key. We have to make sure that just because you're born in one zip code and it might be impoverished does not mean that you stay in a state of impoverishment for the rest of your life. We have to make sure that there is equitable access to education. And so, yes, financial literacy is a part of it, but we have to make sure that our public schools are stronger. I am also a supporter of alternative schools, but there's just not enough of them. So we have to make sure that whether you're going to private school or you're going to a specialized school or a public school, that the educational opportunities are equitable, that we have strong literacy programs, strong math programs, science programs. STEAM is so important right now to our young people. As you look right now at businesses that are being launched and that are growing most, it's those in the area of technology, especially in the advent of COVID, with so much being shut down and so many things happening through a virtual platform right now. Our entrance into technology, whether it's for education or regular business, is going to be so critical. Even retail spaces are opening more and more in a digital space. So we have to make sure that our young people are strong in the area of technology. So in order for education to also be equitable right now, the other thing that we really have to look at is full broadband access. As our kids have been home for the past few months, trying to learn virtually online, and some right now have a hybrid learning space. And I believe we'll be going back to online fully soon as COVID and pneumonia and flu season all kind of combine into this triple pandemic. So many of our young people do not have full access to online services. And so they might still have a very low level of broadband access where they need something higher and more stable in order for them to get their education. This could be the new way of education. We're talking about a vaccine, but how long is it going to take us to vaccinate our young people and our families at high enough a level for everyone to be able to go back to school? So we want to make sure that our young people have access to high quality, high speed internet, and that we're also getting them these laptops, not just tablets, but the laptops that can do everything and help them fully take advantage of these online educational platforms. When we're talking about economic mobility, another thing that the congressman and the discussion went to is making sure that our small businesses have access to capital. So right now, African-American small businesses account for 4% of the small businesses in the country, 4%, whereas we as a people account for more than 13% of the population. And so, those numbers, the way that we're represented in small businesses is really, really bad. I'm not against vocational education, but we want to make sure that what we're doing for vocational education, that we are coupling that with financial literacy, that we're coupling that with learning how to be an entrepreneur, how to develop your business plan, how to market, how to gain access to capital. We just had a meeting with PCSB Bank the other day. That's one of the community banks, and Orange Bank, which is another community bank, because the banks like Chase and Wells Fargo, they have such a monopoly on our community, so that working with your smaller community banks are very important for businesses to gain access to capital. All banks, whether it's a Chase or it's a community bank, has community reinvestment funds, and we have to make sure through legislation, through enforcement of legislation and policies, and the way that we connect with them in the community, that we're holding banks, large and small, accountable, making sure that they are reinvesting in our community through small business programs, through home ownership programs, through access to capital, and supporting our small businesses and our entrepreneurs. And then also making sure that people of all financial levels understand banking, and that we're not continuing to do banking in our community through check cashing places and payday loan schemes. These are the things that have constantly broken the backbone of our community. One of the things that I've been challenging a lot of our local businesses, especially our Black businesses and our upcoming entrepreneurs, is to understand that you cannot handle your business like a hustle. There's a lot of people who begin as a hustle. This is my side hustle. This is how I'm making my money. This is how I'm coming up. And I'm not talking about drug dealing, whether you're selling products, whether you're doing hair, whether you have a trade and you're a plumber or an electrician or something of that. First of all, you have to make sure that you're licensed, that you're insured, that you're bonded, that you have your MWBE, which is your Minority and Women's Business Enterprise certification. You have to make sure that you have a bank account and that you're paying taxes and that you're keeping records of your revenues and your expenses and your gains. Because when you don't have that, you can have a very lucrative business. But if your business is not an official business on paper, if you're not an MWBE, if you don't have a bank account, if you can't show your revenues and your expenditures and how you've made money, then when you need to go to a bank and ask for a loan, even if it's a community bank, or if you want to go and find one of those angel investors, it's going to be hard for you to get someone to invest in your business when you can't clearly show on paper why someone should invest in your business. And so oftentimes I say we treat our business like a hustle because people don't always want to pay taxes, or it's not convenient, or to have insurance and things like that is hard. But if you treat your business like a hustle, everyone's going to treat it like a hustle, and they're not going to invest in you. And so those are some of the conversations that we're having here on a local level. And so we're working with the Small Business Development Administration. We are partnering with SOBRO out of the Bronx. We're partnering with the Women's Enterprise Development Center. We're partnering with our local banks and even Lehman College to provide a lot of capacity building opportunities for our small businesses and for our entrepreneurs. So they'll understand how to make a small business plan. So they understand how to market their business, how they understand how to engage government entities around procurement, around the procurement process. How do you do business with the government? How do you get government contracts? You have to have that paperwork in place. I know oftentimes we point fingers and say that we're not getting the government contracts, and that is true. That's something we've seen, but we have to be very strategic and intentional in making sure that we are preparing our businesses to be eligible for those government contracts. So now that we are in power, and whether we're a mayor or a senator or a congressperson or a county executive, if I were today to say I'm setting aside 35% of our business, 50% of our business for minority-owned businesses, but you have to have your MWBE, it would be very hard for me to find a lot of our small businesses that have that certification. I had that trouble at the YMCA, wanted to do business, but people weren't certified.
Wow, so Mayor Patterson, I'm gonna steal something from my brother Lays, and one of the things that we love about you is your raw perspective on things, and so we love your eloquence and we love your sophistication, but we love even more your raw perspective on what this election means and what we do afterwards. So now I want you to be Sean Patterson right now. I don't need you to be Mayor Patterson right now. I need the world to know, where do we go now, Mayor? Because I think we've been hearing so much about what this election means and what this election means, and the election came and went, and those of us people of color are still in some situations that we were prior to the election. So I need you to give it to them raw, Sean Patterson. I need you to give it to them raw. Let them know the raw perspective.
We can talk about what's happening in DC. We want to keep our eyes on the prize. We want to make sure that as they're hiring secretaries and cabinet level members, and as they're putting people in the position, that they are people who are reflective of those who got them in office. I mean, Georgia didn't get him in office. Atlanta metropolitan area did. It wasn't Michigan. It was Detroit. It wasn't Pennsylvania. It was Philadelphia. So let's be clear. It was the metropolitan areas and people who are of color color and very progressive that got you in office. So we want to make sure that any hiring and any policies and any programs that are coming out of Washington are definitely, you know, they can hit the rural areas, but they have to hit the metropolitan areas. That is where 85% of the American population lives, and that's where that money needs to be reinvested. What do we need to do here on a local level? On a local level, we need to still continue to register to vote. I mean, the difference in Georgia was Stacey Abrams going out and making sure that 800,000 people voted. In 2 years, we're going to have to flip the Senate to be blue. And so we have to start that now. We have to make sure now that we're reaching out to our friends and our family in Georgia and that we're preparing them for this January 5th election. That's what we need to do now. But also now we need to pay attention to what's happening in our local communities, what's happening around police reform. So we can say what they need to do on a federal level around police reform, but even if they do police reforms and educational reforms and lots of reforms on a federal level, what's happening here in our local communities? Are you going to your city council meetings? Are you going to your school board meetings? Because everything doesn't need a federal policy to change what's happening on the local level. We get excited and we will stand online for hours for this federal election, but how many people even know sometimes who their local mayor is? How many of you know who is on the school board? How many of you know who is in your city council or your ward leader? How many of you know who are your county executives and what their policies and what their stances are? And so, you know, we can be enamored and we could celebrate, and, you know, we got an AKA and a Howard alum, and she's going to be in the White House, and we could stroll all the way down, you know, Pennsylvania Avenue.
A lot of partying.
We can do all of that. But if we're not doing our part, if we're not doing our part, if we're not educating ourselves, if we're not putting our shoulders to the wheel, if we're not being involved in our local government and in our county government and our state government and holding those elected officials you know, their feet to the fire, then I don't care. No one is going to come into the White House with a wand. It's the same thing that I say. I'm mayor of a community of 100,000 people. We're 4 square miles, one of the most densely populated communities in the country. And I came in and there's been a lot of decline in our community over the last 2 decades. And as mayor, there's a lot that I can do, but I said forward together. That meant, I need everyone to step up and do their part. So in your house, even if your kids are learning online right now, get on there with them. There's so much still that we could do locally. We have to not believe that a change of the guards in the White House, while it is very important, it is not the magic bullet. The magic bullet is us to become educated, involved, aware of what's happening in our local community, and become engaged in the transformation of our local communities. Because with the policies coming down from the federal government and our putting our shoulder to the wheels and boots on the ground in our local communities, that's where we're really going to see the difference. Oftentimes we just sit back and go, oh, what are they going to do now? The question is not what Biden and Harris is going to do now. It's what is Dennis going to do now? What is Lay's going to do? What is Michelle going to do? What is Sean going to do? What are you going to do in your neighborhood? No one's coming to pick up the garbage in your neighborhood. No one's coming to check your kids' drawers to make sure that they don't have a gun and that they're not selling drugs. So these are the things that we have to do in our community, and nobody else can do it for us. So, you know, what happens now? What happens now is that we get to work. So like he says, make room and let them work.
Can I ask you a question about that in our neighborhood? So I'm going back to something quickly that you said about alternative schools. Do you think as a public school system we're too far gone, and the answer in our communities to push our children of color forward will be alternative schools?
The answer to pushing our schools forward are going to be parent engagement. And if we focus on that in our public schools, because that's what they're doing in your private schools, and that's what they're doing in your specialty schools, it's all about parent engagement. I understand unions. I'm a supporter of unions, but we also have to come to a balance, and we cannot continue to protect people who underperform. And I think that's one of the challenges that, a lot of people come against. When you have people who are underperforming in their jobs, we can't protect them because they're union. People can't get in and become tenured and get to stay there for the rest of their lives. We have to make sure in our public schools that we're hiring the right people, that we're promoting the right people, and that our educators are culturally competent. And the bottom line is that they give a damn about our kids. I don't care whether it's public school or private school where you're paying $100,000 a year. If the educators don't care, then the children aren't going to do well. And if the parents don't step up and do their part and show up, look, my husband was a valedictorian and his mother had a 4th or a 5th grade education. She was functionally illiterate. But guess what? She showed up. She showed up even if she didn't have the questions to ask. She was present. And what she couldn't do, she brought a neighbor to do, or she brought one of his older brothers and sisters to do. And so it's not about a parent's level of education. It's not about that at all. It's the fact that you are present. It's the fact that you are present and that you're demanding better for your children. And that is going to be the difference in the public education, is that we cannot just sit back and expect someone else to do it all for us. It has to be a partnership. There has to be greater engagement on every level in public education and in private education for our kids. And we also have to, definitely start looking to do more and more partnerships with our HBCUs. I went to Howard, and I can tell you that made a difference. And we're all, oftentimes people are fighting and they want to be acknowledged, and they want to feel that if they go to a predominantly white institution, that's going to get them a leg up in life. No, it's going to get you a lot of debt. And when you go into the job force, you're not necessarily going to be paid equitably. But I can tell you what Howard gave me is the confidence that I needed. It gave me the competence. It gave me the skills. It gave me the connections, the relationships. And most importantly, it gave me the grit that I needed to push forward and realize that the level field is not fair. It's not a level playing field. And once we realize that it's not a level playing field, we can push for equity. But while we're pushing for equity, we also know that we have to bear down a little bit harder. And like Damon and them are getting ready to, we got to push those babies through.
Well, Mayor, let me ask you a question. And I got a question and I got a statement. First of all, we need more of you, okay? Because my question is to the leadership in the African American community. There was a lot of talk during the 8 years of Barack Obama after he got out of the office. A lot of the brothers, they said 18% of African American men voted for Donald Trump in this election. And what I find is that we have a serious lack of leadership. You speak self-accountability in our neighborhoods, but at the end of the day, we still need some leadership in government that can go up there and that can bring our agenda to the forefront. My question to you, Madam Mayor, my sister, how do we get more of you in there that can articulate our needs as an African American community? Because it always seems like we still getting the chitlins when we should be getting the heart of the meat, and we're not getting that.
Well, one of the biggest challenges is when you run for office, it takes money. It does. And I had to buy lawn signs, and as much as we say lawn signs don't vote and posters don't vote, people do. But in order for you to have the level of visibility that you need to make sure that you have people who are investing in you. And if the only people who are investing in elected officials are corporations, then that's who they're going to represent, is the corporations. And so I was very happy for the $5 and the $10 donation.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, and I would never cut you off because I have so much respect for you, but you're making a lot of excuses for bad leadership in our community.
I'm telling you straight up, if the people who you are attached to, who you are tethered to, who financed your campaign don't look like us and don't have our interests, you're just a black face representing a corporate structure that is built on structural racism. And so we have to understand that our nickels and dimes can help put people in office. I raised close to $500,000. And yes, a lot of that came from friends, family, and the hood. And so I'm able to walk into City Hall without golden handcuffs. That's real. That's real, because I don't owe any big corporate partners. I owe the community. I owe the people. And so I'm able to represent the people unapologetically, and I'm able to serve in a way and live out loud. That makes the difference. And far too many of us, we will put money on our sneakers and we will buy fast food. But how many of us will even take out a minute to donate $10 to somebody who we believe in? And yes, I had some people who gave me 1,000, but I had a lot of people who gave me $10 and $25. And I was very humbled by those $25 from those single mothers. And that's why when I'm out here, I'm making sure that I'm representing those single mothers, that I'm developing programs and policies that represent the praying mothers and the brothers on the block who went out and got signatures for me. That makes a difference. If you have people who are just getting monies from corporate entities, then they're going to be a corporate politician, and they're always going to be for their personal come up. But when you are elected by the people, for the people, then you will represent the people. And that's just the bottom line.
You know, man, that was
drop the mic. She dropped the mic.
That was a setup question because I knew that you were going to lay it down once I set you up with that question. But you know, the point I'm making is our representation is as good as we are. So if we don't get behind our representation, then it can't help us. And I think that's the point that the mayor was making, obviously. And that's what I wanted to do. And I appreciate you, Madam Mayor. And I don't understand why don't we have more of you, because we need more of you in government.
And the people have to, you know, one thing that we do when we elect people who look like us is we expect them to change things overnight. We put up with a whole bunch of people for a long time, and then you get a candidate that you believe in and you put them in, but oftentimes you don't even give them an opportunity to make a difference. To change a system and a structure. I'm taking over a community that is falling apart. And, you know, the biggest thing that we hear is, when are you going to fill the potholes? Well, the streets have been messed up for 20 years and I've been in for 10 months. And, you know, there's a lot of things that have to happen. And those aren't excuses. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. And so we are quick to jump our alliances and our allegiances. And oftentimes, as people of color, we are so broken, we are so disenchanted with the political system that it's easier to believe a lie than it is to believe the truth, because no one wants to be hurt. And you've been lied to, we've been jerked around, and we've been taken for granted for so long that there are a lot of, people told me, look, why are you running? The community doesn't deserve you. The community is so broken that when you get in there, they're going to kill you as soon as you don't do everything they want you to do as quick as they want you to do. And I'm telling you, you know, the work is easy. Changing the culture, changing the expectation, and gaining buy-in from a community that's been beaten for so long is a very difficult thing. And so there are a lot of good people who are out there. There's a lot of good. I've never wanted to run for public office, and I can't believe that I'm sitting here now, but I can tell you there's a lot of good people out there who would want to step in this arena. And we're looking and talking to people about running for city council right now, but they're like, why would I want to do that to myself? Because we don't appreciate when we do have good leadership. We're always calling everybody corrupt, and I've had a good reputation for 30 years of work, and I can tell you, in the last 6 months, I've had more negative, articles written, not about the work, but people trying to disparage my character, because that's the best way for people who want your seat to get your seat, is to try and tear down your character and get you running, focusing so much on the drama that you can't focus on the work. And so I focus on the work. I focus on the work because I'm committed to making impact. I'm not committed to re-election. I'm committed to getting the work done. And if I can do the work, then I have an opportunity for re-election. But if I chase every rumor, if I chase every blog and every nasty post about me, then I'll never be able to focus on the work. And so I'm here to do the work. I'm here to serve the people. I'm here to make sustainable impact and change. And I'm here to represent my community on a county, a state, and a federal level. And those are the connections that I'm making, not so that I could benefit when I get out of office, but so that my community can benefit now. And that's what we have to remember. You get elected, and there are two things you need to do. You need to serve those who elected you, and then you can focus on re-election. But we can't focus on the fact that we need to serve those who got us in office. That's always the priority.
And Mayor Patterson, just before we let you go, Simone Nicholas put something very profound in the chat about leadership matters. And I think when you had first stepped foot on the meetup with us on Thursday, OSG, the meetup, you got a chance to see people that are addressing Lazy's question of how do we make more Mayor Pattersons. And you got principals like Simone Nicholas and Kiyoki and all the other principals who are here today, supporting what's happening here in this town hall. What was it about OSG? Because I know you built a strong relationship with a lot of us. What was it about us that made you feel like, you know what, they are doing the same thing that I'm doing, and I want to make sure that we partner together on some of these bigger endeavors? What was it about OSG?
So I understand and have always understood that education is the great equalizer. And while I've never been an educator, I've always worked close with people in education. So when you're talking about community schools and you're talking about equity and partnering with parents, and I saw the passion and the commitment of the leaders who were engaged and involved with OSG, I said that any type of resources that I have, I'm willing to pour out. I'm not going to hold on to what I have, because the bottom line is, in order to get more leaders like me, we have to pour in and we have to build the capacity of people who look like us, who are willing to serve our community and who are surrounding us. If we as a leader, you're crushed. I'll never follow someone who's never been broken, because if you've never been broken, then you don't know how to serve humbly, because you think that you got there on your own. And so when I see people who've been through some things, who've been through some struggles, but who are still willing to stand on the front lines, then that's the people that I want to invest in. Those are the people who I want to see their capacity and their confidence and their credentials being built, and making sure that we're helping them to also build character. And because those are the people who we need on the front lines doing the work. And that is what I see in OSG. You came together in the midst of COVID, when you could have said, we're going to use these 2 hours a week just to kind of chill out. You said, no, our babies are out of school. We miss our babies. We know that because they're not with us, that they're not getting the same thing that they would get if we were in front of them. And the OSG leaders are taking time, serious time, out of their personal time to figure out how they are going to meet the widening divide. We already know that there's a divide in our kids educationally, and we can't substitute online learning for what we provide our children in person. And that's the dedication and the commitment. That's how OSG was birthed. It was birthed out of a need. You haven't strayed from it. Y'all are fly leaders. You're educated leaders. You're leaders who have a lot of swag and a lot of grit. And that's important. But most importantly, you believe in the mission that you've set out to accomplish. And I always want to partner with people who are about the business of the people, and who are not, you're sitting there on a Zoom doing it privately. You didn't jump out in public looking for a lot of public accolades, but you're there to do the work. And that's what makes the difference. And I'm going to always partner with, and I'm always going to support, because guess what? There are people who took out time with me when I was broken, when I was trying to figure my way. And I said, there are 5 things that any leader needs that are critical to your success. You need competence, you need character, you need confidence, you need credentials. And once you get all of that, you need courage, because it's not easy standing up to be a leader, because everyone can point out what you're not doing right. And if you listen to the chatter and everything that everyone else says, you will cripple yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You'll give up. You'll walk away from your passion. You'll sit in the corner, and in our community will go to crap. And so that's what we need to continue to do, is build one another up, encourage one another, hold each other accountable, and fight and have each other's back. Because if we don't have each other's back, then when we start losing soldiers in this fight, we won't have anyone to blame but ourselves.
Well, so I had to jump in on that. Can someone please drop those 5 C's in the feed so that we could all follow that? But I just need to correct something that you said, Mayor Patterson. You said you are not an educator. Yes, you are.
Mm-hmm.
You drop jewels on us every week. Okay, you just don't wear that title under your many hats that you wear, but you are certainly an educator because everyone, when you start speaking, everyone
Mm-hmm.
gets silent because we're listening. So, could somebody please put those 5 C's in the feed so that we could put that in our little journal and we could continue to roll because we know we need to continue to build our many U's.
Thank you. I'm humbled to be a part of OSG family. You know, like I said, you guys inspire me every time I'm able to get on the call with you. And when I'm able to sit back and see the work that you're doing, because you are serving our kids. You're not just talking about education, you're talking about strengthening the parents, financial literacy, school to prison pipeline, how to feed our babies, literally deal with food insecurity in the communities. Because with schools being out, that's 2 meals a day that our kids are missing, that oftentimes they're not getting at home. You're talking about how do we expand the capacity of the parents to become engaged. You're talking about entrepreneurship, and so many of the OSG leaders, you are kicking off your own businesses, and you're walking the walk. You're not just talking it, you're walking it. And that's what makes OSG very different from other people, is because you're not talking about it, you're being about it. And that's the critical difference.
Well, before I let you go and hand it back over to Michelle, um, I just want to thank you again for always answering a call. Anytime we ask you to bless us and to bless us with your presence, you do so. I've not been in a room with you yet where you haven't dropped the mic. And I think everybody else who's ever heard you understands the passion and the love that you have for our communities, for our young people. And we thank you. We appreciate you. And again, you know, there's certain things that you shared with those of us here today. Not only the people who are viewing you, but those of us in on this, you know, in the backstage about what's going on with you. And I just wanted to just, you know, continue to keep you and your family in my prayers. Just tell you we love you. We got your back. Anything you need from us, let us know. Um, and Michelle, before I hand it back over to you, once again, I want to, you know, pay respect to your,
Condolences.
and you know, respect and condolences to your family on the loss of, you know, your uncle Jerry Rawlins, who did such amazing work in Ghana and abroad. So thank you so much, Michelle. Please give your entire family our condolences and our respect and our love. And you know, Michelle, when I get a chance to see you in action, I understand where you get that, where you get that fervency from, where you get that attitude from, where you get that swag from, where you get that, you know, that passion from. So, you know, those things don't happen by accident, and you owe a lot
Like
to your
flex.
uncle and everybody else. So, you know, again, Michelle, keep doing your thing. We love you. You know, keep you and your family in our prayers. And so I'm gonna turn it over to you because you know you are that dope. So I'm gonna let you finish up and get the final words for today.
Wow, I'm so humbled just to be in the presence of everyone here. And again, Mayor Sean, you know, we are so happy that we have made your acquaintance, and that you continuously come back every week and continue to pour a little bit more into everyone in the OSG family. And of course, to Dennis and Lays, who, you know, had the forethought to put this together to just really bring a strong group of individuals together who are about the work and are really committed to our communities. And this is, you know, that grassroots movement. And this is how we start building a local leadership and state leadership and federal leadership, and that we can turn on the television and see a vice president elect who looks like many of the children that we serve. And we hope to see maybe in 4 years her take the seat and again, you know, shatter that glass ceiling for women and little brown girls of color. And you know, we're just all just collectively just dope. And this is amazing, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. And again, I just want to leave everyone with their I'm very humbled, and I thank you for all of the kind words and everyone that was here to really share with. Now that we've started and we have theory, we need to turn our theories into action. And what does that really look like, and where do we go from here? And that was what was so important for us, to really not lose this momentum, to keep it going and to continue to have these conversations so that we remain relevant and we keep these ideas not in the back of our minds, but we bring it to the forefront of our thoughts and we continue to push forward. And I want to shout out those 5 C's again, Mayor Patterson, if I may. Okay, we have to be competent. We have to have credentials. We have to have character, confidence, and most importantly, courage to push through. And we thank everyone for being here tonight with us. And Mayor Patterson, you are in our prayers, and we love you much. And you have the strength of everyone who's part of OSG. And we thank you for being with us tonight.
Yes, Sister Michelle.
Yes, Sister Michelle.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
And you know what? We're going to add
We're going to add one more C to that.
Crushing.
Crushing is only after the grape has been crushed that it produces wine. That's directly from the mayor, Madam Patterson. Everything we've been talking about this week, it all happened today. And the thing that y'all didn't even know about what was happening on behind the scenes is amazing. And this is why I am so honored to be attached to this group of wonderful people. Before we go, I want to take a second and shout out and wish a happy entry into this planet from my brother Dame Dash and Little Dusko and my sister Rocky. And I'm so proud of you, Dame. You did it. All right. You did it again. All right. And we are here with you, and we are so proud to welcome Little Dusko Dash into the OSG family. Hey, easy breezy. It's your time, man. Time to go. All right. We want to say goodnight to everybody. This is the OSG network, the beginning of so many amazing things. We're just getting started. Watch us work. Shout out to my OSG family. Shout out to my MOP family. Shout out to Mayor Patterson and everybody in Mount Vernon, 4 square miles. Shout out to Sister Michelle. My condolences to you and your family, but he ain't gone. He put all his energy into you, and you're going to take that another step further. So God bless you, sister. One love. I think we're off the air. God bless everybody and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.